Many Americans believe the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour falls short of the poverty line. Countless of the employed are working long hours and are working possibly more than one job to make ends meet. Working folks on public assistance programs just doesn't seem right. For some, the solution is very simple: raise the minimum wage. Some cities have already done so, phasing in minimum wage increases with the ultimate goal of reaching $15 an hour in the coming years. Is this a simple fix, and is it really the solution? Well, it's a lot more complicated than it seems, and leads me to believe that a mandatory increase of the national minimum wage to $15 per hour will hurt the national economy. Many others agree. Why so? Well, the following 5 reasons will help us to discuss this matter in more detail. First of all, there are examples that the minimum wage increase or a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour has actually resulted in layoffs or closed businesses because employers just can't afford to keep the same number of employees or can't afford to stay in business with paying employees $15 an hour. Further reduction in the workforce comes by means of some employees on public assistance asking to have their hours reduced so that they can stay on those programs, which leads to the discussion of another topic. There's no significant reduction in the numbers of persons on public assistance by raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour. In Seattle, Washington, according to a Fox News report, despite a booming economy in that area, there's been really very little difference in the food stamps program, according to the report. In March, there were 130,851 people enrolled in the food assistance program. After the rollout of an increased minimum wage, that number only dropped to 130,376. So there didn't have the big impact on significantly reducing the number of folks on food stamps in that instance. Personal experience here, I work for a public assistance program, and I can tell you without a doubt, there are many people, or most people on that program, have little to no interest in getting off of it. They want to keep those benefits no matter what. So the thought that raising the minimum wage would encourage people to work harder and to provide a way for themselves rather than to rely on the taxpayers simply isn't true. We've touched on this topic some already, but another reason is that there's a significant strain on employers with the added pressure of a $15 an hour minimum wage. On top of those higher salaries, there are health insurance premiums that they're demanded to pay, and that's even more of a hot topic nowadays, but that's a cost that they have. We've talked about the workforce demands that would be negatively impacted with the increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. You either have a choice of fewer workers to get the same productivity done, or potentially now more workers but a greater demand to do even more work in order to reach the same profit goals. These types of things can impact the quality of the goods and services that they're providing. Again, profit margins could be impacted, and it may all result in increased prices. Hey, we'll pay our employees $15 an hour, but now the public's going to have to fit the bill for that because we have a certain profit margin that we have to maintain. These are the types of things that employers, or types of pressures employers are feeling or can feel if they're mandated to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Another thought for me personally is, what will be the appropriate wages now for more skilled jobs? So if the 16-year-old at McDonald's is making $15 an hour to start, how much will the school teacher now be paid to start? Whereas they may be making $20 an hour to start now. Will their skill and education and expertise now demand that they make even more? Or what about the nurse or policeman or a secretary who actually started out at $15 an hour? How much will he or she make now? It just seems to me that if you make the simple jobs start at $15 an hour, what will more complex jobs that require education, experience, so on and so forth, how much will they demand now in order to maintain a competitive employment situation? All of this points to the one key factor: inflation. Increased wages will result in inflation. My question, though, there is, if you increase the most simple jobs to $15 an hour, and there's increase across the board in prices in other more complex or skilled jobs, will not these people still be in the same situation they were in at the bottom of the totem pole? Public assistance programs, will they adjust their eligibility requirements, and will these persons still not qualify for those programs, or will it still qualify rather for those programs because they are still at the bottom in the wage scale? It seems like to me that there's a potential that increasing the minimum wage across the board will only lead to a similar situation with even more dire results, because now fewer people will be working, and those who are still working and making that $15 an hour will still likely qualify for some public assistance programs. It just seems like it won't have the impact that many are suggesting that it will. So now, the negative impact as a result of inflation in itself is enough to reject the idea of a $15 an hour minimum wage hike as a quick fix. But are there some alternatives to kind of help relieve the situation? Well, there are reports that a modest or more modest increase in the minimum wage might be a solution for some places. There are bigger cities like New York City, San Francisco, and Seattle in itself that can afford a $15 an hour minimum wage floor, whereas there are other cities like New Orleans or Miami or most other cities across the country that cannot absorb such an increase. So maybe these other places might be able to afford $9 an hour, $10 an hour, $11 an hour as a minimum wage floor. So instead of going across the board nationally $15 an hour, maybe there should be some type of effort to hike the minimum wage, but in a more modest sense, depending on the locale and the economy in which persons are in. There's also options on the employer end as well. Some advances in technology, which has been the case for many, many years now. When technology advances, sometimes the workforce decreases because there's no longer a need to have that man labor, so to speak. But there's an example now that McDonald's has created a kiosk in order to take orders. So now they no longer need a person at the register to handle orders. A kiosk can be used and payment can be submitted via debit or credit card, which most people use anyway. And that's an opportunity to not only increase accuracy of orders, but also, is it the question is this a way to eliminate jobs? Now you no longer need X number of cashiers to take these orders and to handle money related to orders? Or is it an opportunity to improve customer service? Now you take those employees who are working the registers and you put them back to work on other tasks that could help to more efficiently handle those orders and actually complete those orders by making hamburgers or fries or drinks or what have you. So that's a big question, and only McDonald's can really answer why they're making this move. But there's been a pressure in the fast food industry in particular to boost the minimum wage. This could be a response from one of the titans of the fast food industry to say, well, hey, we'll increase our minimum wage to $15 an hour, but now we won't need as many employees. So it kind of points to, again, what we discussed earlier, that some of the impacts here are the fact that the workforce could be reduced if a minimum wage hike to $15 an hour is mandated. All this points to the fact that on the surface, doubling the national minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour sounds great for poor employees. However, the negative impact on the economy, inflation, job losses, strained workforce, probable little to no relief for public assistance programs, challenges to employers, all these things point to such an increase as a huge mistake. Wouldn't life be great if all of us got a raise? Well, not so fast.